Hey there.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Hey, thank you for asking.
Yeah, so our podcast is about your journey in the music industry
Awesome.
and how you got to where you are now. Tell me about where you grew up.
I grew up in, well, part of the time when I was a little kid, I grew up in Alaska.
Oh, wow. Were you
Yeah.
born in Alaska?
No, my sister was, my younger sister, but I wasn't. I was just there as a kid, and it was really a great place for a kid to grow up.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it was. And then my parents and my brothers and my sister and our bird drove from Alaska to California. Through
Oh my
Canada.
gosh.
Yeah, through the Alcan Highway, which was pretty new at that time. So that was a great adventure. But living in Alaska was a great adventure. I think more than anything. And then we moved to a small city. At the time, it was small, called Folsom, which is right outside of Sacramento, California.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and at the time it was really small. So I think both having grown up in Alaska and in Folsom, it really gave me that taste for kind of a city life. And so I kind of wandered from Sacramento down through the San Francisco Bay Area, and then ended up in Los Angeles, and have been here ever since. And I love it.
Okay. Well, how did you get into music originally?
Into music?
Yeah.
Well, I think at one point my mom bought us kids. She wanted us each to play a musical instrument, and she got me. She said, "So pick something." I didn't know what to pick because I didn't know I even wanted to play music, and I picked a piano, and my brother picked a guitar, and my younger brother picked drums. And at one point, there was a local band when I was about 14. A local band came by to hear my brother audition as a drummer. And
Okay.
I was on the drums when they walked in the door, and I got the gig. And he was so sweet. He gave me his drums, and he let me use his drums. He didn't give them to me, but I pretty much commandeered the set, and they became kind of mine. And I started playing with my first band at 14.
Wow. And that
Yeah.
was just like what, like a high school band?
Well, yeah, I guess it was kind of. We were all the guitarist who was the leader of the band. He was 12. He was like some little virtuoso guitar player, and this is back in the 60s.
Uh-huh.
So it was very unusual for a girl to be playing a musical instrument, and his mom was the manager of the band, and she recognized something different when she walked in the door. She thought this could be good, and I got the gig, and kind of the rest is history. I didn't even really know how to play. I learned as I went, but I practiced really hard so I could do those very first gigs. And we weren't like, times were different. They had actually booked us real shows, like at teen centers and at high school.
Wow.
And there were military bases around, and we played on those, and at the teen centers. But so we were really, a working band, and I had to join the union at 14, which.
Whoa. Wow. Why is that? Why was that? Like the SAG type union? Or
No,
what union?
American Musicians Union. American
Really?
Federation of Musicians Union. Yeah, because we were doing contracts and getting paid. So at the time, the union was really strong, and I had to join it. It was a big deal for me and my parents to help me join the union. It's not like we grew up with a lot of money, so it was a big deal. And as soon as my dad, got together the $80 for me to join, I really felt like I had to see it through, because I was scared. I was taking something on, and this is something I've done all my life. Somebody will say, "You want to do something?" I'll go, "Yeah." And then after I hang up the phone or after I leave the room, I go, "What am I doing? I don't know how to do that," but do it anyway.
Yeah, do it anyway. So that band, so you got to join this union at 14 to play drums.
Yeah.
And then from that band, what was next for you? I
The
mean,
next
did you
one,
stay in that band through high school?
no, I was, when you're younger, everything seems like it, was like years and years and years. It was probably like a year and a half or 2 years, maybe something like that.
Mm-hmm.
When I was 16, I met Gene and June Millington, the Millington sisters, and we had a little local band called the Spells, which later on turned into Fanny. Moved down to Los Angeles
Okay.
and became Fanny. So June and Gene and I played up in the Sacramento area. June was a little older, so she had a license and a car, and we used to drive down to San Francisco. We played the Fillmore West in the 60s with the Doors in an afternoon thing.
Oh my gosh.
It was pretty wide open in those days. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was before I think that they had actually become known. And I think they and us were both auditioning. That's why it was afternoon. I'm going way back when, so it's hard to remember, but I think we were all auditioning to play at the Fillmore. But I do remember that they didn't have a bass player, and it was so strange.
That's so crazy
Yeah.
to be on like an audition with the Doors. Wow. Oh man. Okay. So well, then what was the first like big touring type of act you joined, and where were you in life at that point?
That's a really good question. I mean, I think it built up slowly. You know, we played, like we booked our own gigs at the time and did those. But the first time I went on kind of a tour of the States was with Fanny. We got in a station wagon. We had done the last of there was 5 original Fanny records. Mm-hmm. And I had left the band because I had a baby. So I was out we all lived together still and hung out because we were all good friends. And then I rejoined the band for the last album, and we went out on tour to support rock and roll survivors. And off that record, there was Fanny's highest charting record, Butter Boy.
Okay.
It went up to number 29. And I just read something recently, which I thought was kind of cool. It was the first all-girl band to chart, in the
really?
Yeah, and I
Wow.
never thought about that, because I know that, the Go-Go's and the Bangles had great success on the charts. And then the Runaways had great success.
Oh yeah.
I guess in Japan and in Europe. But we actually had the first charting single as a girl band. So that was kind of cool. And also the first, I'm going to call it female band to be signed to a major record label.
Wow.
So those are kind of little neat bits that, you never think about at the time.
Yeah.
But it's a little piece of rock and roll history. So now I'm thinking, I'm proud to be part of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, you were in the first band signed, all girl band signed to a major label. Tell me about that.
Well, at the time, I was kind of in and out of the band. The producer, Richard Perry, and the manager, Roy Silver, hired me back in the band. They wanted me to be in the band as the lead vocalist, or to share some lead vocals, but they wanted some more vocal strength. But in the end, after we were rehearsing and getting ready to go out and do it, they decided they wanted to kind of take more of the Fab Four approach, where it was, like the Beatles, like playing instruments and singing. So they said, okay, Brie, I know you were in, but now you're out. So that was kind of a drag, but at the time, actually, really, it was devastating. But we all know that old saying that things were meant to happen for a reason, and it's actually kind of worked out for me, because from there I wanted that taste of being in a recording band, and I wanted to have that again. So I spent the rest of the time until I had another recording situation looking for that and working for that and doing a lot of studio sessions, and ended up doing a lot of tours and working with a lot of people. So Fanny wasn't my only experience, but I do remember getting on that plane and going out on that first Fanny tour so we could pick up our station wagon back east. Pretty exciting, pretty scary, but just a lot of fun. I love performing, so I think it's my favorite thing of all, between recording and performing live. I love performing because nobody can push that stop button. You're just going, and you have to fly by the seat of your pants once again, and you're committed. So it's just cool.
Yeah. And then after Fanny, when you left Fanny, is that when you started American Girls?
I guess, probably shortly after.
Okay.
At the time I was married to James Newton Howard, and he was working with Elton John.
Wow.
And Elton John's receptionist was Glen Ballard of producer and writer fame, who did, I mean, he co-wrote Man in the Mirror, has gone on to produce, Wilson Phillips and Alana Morissette. So he's done great things. So I did a band with Glenn for a while. And we also wrote songs for MCA Records.
Wow.
Yeah. So
how did that work? You would just write for other artists?
Yeah. And we were just writing.
Okay.
And MCA was pitching the songs, and we got some pretty good covers. Randy Crawford did one. Peter Criss did one for his solo album from Kiss, and
Wow.
Ellen Foley and the Pointer Sisters, and Michael Jackson did a song.
I read that. I want to hear about this.
Yeah, so it's still in the archives, and I'm hoping one of these days it comes out. That would be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be rad. So he recorded it for the Thriller record, right?
Yes. Well, actually, it wasn't called Thriller yet.
Oh.
The record was recorded, and then they heard our song called Nightline and loved it and wanted to lean towards that kind of thing. So they scrapped everything they had and re-recorded everything that you hear now on Thriller. And then our song had just been released by, it was either the Pointer Sisters or Randy Crawford, so it wasn't going to be a first release, so they took it off the Thriller record. And it was devastating, you know.
Oh my gosh.
The head of our publishing called me up and said, "Are you sitting down?" And I said, "Yeah, okay." And he says, "Bad news, they've decided not to go with it." And, you know, that's just one of those things where, you know, my life would be completely different now, but once again, it led to other things. And at this point, you know, in 2020, I can't complain about where I've been, what I've done, the expanse of it all. So, I mean, listen, I'd love to have that money. Not kidding you.
Yeah, right.
But all in all, it was a great experience. But while I was writing with MCA, with Glenn and with Davey Farragher, it was tough because we were ripping songs out. And what I learned about, I was just looking at a list. I was cleaning out some boxes because, you know, that's what we do now with the quarantine.
With quarantine, yeah.
And I found a box of old tapes, cassette tapes. I don't know if they're still playable, but I found a list of a ton of songs, and I counted them. There was like 60 songs that we wrote together, but we were ripping them out. You know, we'd go to work every day and work on stuff, go to MCA Publishing Studios, which was in the basement, and record the demos. And it kind of burnt me out. Because what I've discovered over time, since then, for a long time, is that I'm best not writing like that. I'm best at writing something that comes from me, that means something to me, that I care about or share with somebody. Mm-hmm. Those are my favorite songs that I write instead of ripping them out. I'm not a good ripper.
Yeah, because you'd just go in and that was your gig, right? You'd have to get those work and you just start writing songs.
Yeah.
It wasn't like you're doing it for yourself. It was literally like a job.
An idea or a cool line, and then we'd take it from there. And for me, it's like, because my favorite thing is performing, interpreting a song for me is really meaning what the lyrics say. Uh-huh. You know, so it's just much easier for me, just the way I'm built. And it took a long time to learn, but I did learn that with American Girls. That was a great experience. So you asked about that. Uh-huh. That was probably, so we finished Fanny. We did the Fanny recording thing, but then the girls and I, June and Jean and I, and some of the other women that were involved were so close that we just kept trying to put something together and kept trying to do something. We almost did another Fanny record, but it didn't happen. I met Kim Turner, who was partners or who was working with Miles Copeland, and I got a call and they said that they were looking for a drummer for a group. And I always say yes to everything. Showed up, and that worked out really well. And at the time, Louise Goffin, who was Carol King's daughter, She was in the band. Daryl Hannah was in the band. Hillary Shepard was in the band, and a woman named D.B. Tressler was playing guitar. And we worked hard once again. Miles, I think, built a building on his property, and we would rehearse there. And we went on tour with Lords of the New Church. That was hysterical because they were pretty wild and woolly.
Yeah.
Some Stevie Vader stories.
Where was that tour?
It was all over the United States.
Okay.
It was a driving tour, and it was a mess and hysterical and a whole lot of fun. And that was great. It was good. And the record that we did before we went on tour, we ended up doing in I knew a guitar player from when we were doing the songs for MCA Music. We had a guy named Dennis Herring come in because he was a fabulous guitar player and he was a friend. And he wanted to get into production. And
Okay.
he had produced Timbuk 3. I don't know if you remember them. This is back in the, you were probably like 2 or something. And Future So Bright, I Gotta Wear Shades. It was the name of the song. But anyway, so he was getting into production. So he produced our record on a Fostex 8-track in his basement. And I just listened to that record for the first time within the last year. And I thought, for what we did, it was remarkable. It was amazing. So that was the American Girls thing. And
you were singing for American Girls and playing drums, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of how you've been doing it. You'll play and sing at the same time.
That's how I learned. When I was in my very first band, I didn't really sing leads. I sang background parts. But then when I worked with June and Jean, I sang my first, solo.
Yeah.
And that was it for me. It was like kind of the R&B soul days, and I had a blast, and I loved it. And it was funny because it's almost easier for me to play and sing at the same time because I'm used to using all that.
Yeah.
And I think the vocals affect the drums and the drums affect the vocals because I have control over the tempo. Sorry, if you hear scampering around, my little dogs are playing around my feet.
Oh, it's fine. You might see mine run behind me too.
Okay. And so yeah, it's like I learned to do all those things at the same time. So I liken it to like if you're a guitar player trying to play with 9 fingers.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I'm missing that thing. And yeah, like I think sometimes like when I'm singing, I really need it. I can control the dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
So that it's fun for me and I like it and it's super physical. And one thing that I found, this is kind of a cool little story if you want to hear it.
I would love to.
In our teens and when we lived in Sacramento, when I was playing with June and Jean, we ended up going to Freeborn Hall where I saw Janis Joplin.
Wow.
Yeah. And we walked into the auditorium. I forgot the name of it. I had it the other day and now I've forgotten, but that's okay. But I walked in and we were watching the opening act and we were sitting on the floor and like making noise, like, and this woman walks up and she says, "Hey, have some respect." She points to the people on the stage and I thought, okay, fine. And I wanted to say, "Bitch."
Yeah.
And, half an hour later, she was on stage and it was Janis.
Oh, man.
And I was a fan of hers at the time. I'd been listening to her records and she blew my mind. The thing that I read about her and that people talk about her and say is that she sang every note as if it was her last. And it's absolutely true. She did not hold back. It wasn't a huge show. But she was completely committed. And I looked at her and I said, I want to be that. I want to do that. Mm-hmm. So, even sometimes when it's not necessarily right for the occasion, sometimes I just got to blow it out 100%. And, that's what I do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And well, you've gotten praise from David Bowie, which is crazy. Like in Rolling Stone magazine. I mean, that's pretty cool too.
He was great. He used to show up at our shows because that last tour that we did for Rock and Roll Survivors, we decided we wanted to take, and it was probably because of Bowie, we wanted to put on kind of a rock opera.
Okay.
So we had these capes and we had these certain outfits, and we would, before we did a song, we would get up and do a little dialogue. And honestly, when I look back at it, I think it was horrible, but we were trying some kind of theatrical thing. But
Yeah,
Bowie,
so it's kind of staged like little bits in between the songs.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
like stage banter.
If we would have been better at it, it might have been good. But, you know, at the time, that wasn't all I knew how to do was to play and sing. I didn't know how to connect songs with dialogue.
Sure.
But yeah, so Bowie would come to our shows and give us advice backstage. And one time, I don't remember the show we're playing, but it was in a theater. And during the middle of our set and during a song, him and his entourage walked down the middle of the aisle, and all the lights turned to David, of course. And then he sits down in his seats. And after the show, he comes back and he says, "Girls always know how to make an entrance."
That's awesome.
It was so cool. And it was really great. I had not seen him for ages and ages when he said that shout out for us in Rolling Stone, but it sure was inspiring. It was, I think it was instrumental in June and Gene and I getting back together and get something going because of that. I knew when I saw that, I knew I wanted to turn it into something, but it's so hard to figure that out. You know, I'm not a business guy. I'm not a manager guy. I'm a creative person, and that's all I know how to do. And I have these ideas, but I don't know how to get them done. Mm-hmm. So I guess it took its own time. I just wish that that David would have been around to hear the record or to see us play. It would have been awesome. So that's a shame.
Yeah. And because you just put out a cover, right, of Black Hole Sun?
Yeah, and that was me and Cherie Currie from the Runaways.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember seeing them back in the mid-'70s after Fanny was kind of overish, and it was like passing the torch. So I went to, I guess, a rehearsal. They were getting ready to leave to go on tour. And it was so different from what we did. You know, it was hard to relate because it was just super jamming hard 3-chord rock. And we came out of, you know, some rock, but rock in the time of like the protest songs of the late 60s and the early 70s. And then a lot of Motown and a lot of soul and a lot of R&B. So we were coming from a different school of music. And we never met. I didn't meet Cherie.
Interesting.
Yeah, I met her, 40 something years later at June's and Jean's and my recording session when we were doing Fanny Walked the Earth. Patty Quattro, who was also in the last version of Fanny, she said, because I wanted all the women in Fanny to be on the Fanny Walked the Earth record. I thought it was a great tribute. So I asked Alice, their other drummer, who had done the first 4 records, if she would play on something. And I asked Patty if she would come on and guest star as well. And Patty was so cool. She says, "Hey, I know some other girl musicians, like Kathy from the Go-Go's and Cherie from the Runaways." And I had known Vicki and Peterson and Susanna Hoff from being signed to IRS, because we were on IRS, American Girls, and the Bangles at the same time. So I called Vicki and she responded, and so we had all these women musicians come and join us on that last gathering. So, and I only say last gathering because you never know if there'll be another one or not.
Right.
Yeah. But so Cherie and I did a record that came out last year, The Motivator, where we did a lot of songs that influenced the two of us as young up and coming recording artists. And then right before the pandemic, I think it was right before the pandemic, the record company Blue Along wanted to do a tribute record to Chris Cornell to benefit the Chris and Vicki Cornell Foundation for Kids. So we did that. And, you know, it sounds awesome to me. You know, I forget stuff, you know, I forget how, because I don't sit and listen to the same thing over and over that I just finished. I kind of move on.
Mm-hmm.
And I just listened to it, you know, the other day because I knew it was coming out. And I went, wow, that's cool. So,
Yeah, it's really cool. And what a song to be able to, you know, it must have been pretty, I don't know. That's they obviously gave you a lot of respect if they gave you like the biggest song for him to cover. You know what I mean?
well, I fought for it.
Oh, you did. Okay.
It's just that I knew the minute I heard about the Cornell record, and I knew which song I wanted to do if we were going to be asked.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I knew that they were going to ask us to do one of the songs, I, you know, begged and pleaded. And you know, my husband produced the record.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Dave Darling. He also produced all the artists on that record. He produced, and he produced Cherie's and my record as well. So, but I have to say, he does not play favorites. I had to beg. I had to convince him. And so what we did is we tried doing a version of it, and it had to sound good and it had to sound right in order for it to be the song that we got to do. And it's a tougher song than I knew to sing. Mm-hmm. I just hear the beauty of how Chris Cornell sings, that he makes it sound like easy, but that melody is wild when you're trying to get it not only just perfect, but get the right emotion behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the interesting things is I mentioned this before, when I perform, I really like to know what story I'm telling, because it helps me perform it as a performer. I don't know what his lyrics meant. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because they're just kind of otherworldly. And what I had to do is I just had to kind of channel what it meant to me, and just take from the emotion of what he was saying, because everything was packed. It's just that there wasn't a completely cohesive storyline. Although after the fact, I'm thinking about it a lot, and I don't know if that's true. If I'm able to look at it from another perspective, you know, maybe there is a cohesive story. And I was just starting to think about that yesterday, about what line to line meant, because I knew what they meant to me, but I don't know what he was.
Right, what he was trying to convey with it. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Was it hard to, I mean, when you're doing something like that, it must be really easy to like overthink everything, because you want to, not only are you doing his biggest song, but, you know, trying to do it justice, and, you know, everyone's going to hear it and probably give their own opinion.
It's the same thing with performing, that I just have to do what I do, and I have to be okay with it. And I've had enough people tell me over my lifespan that they're inspired and they love what I do. So I just have to go with that. I cannot compete with Chris Cornell. I can't compete with any of the people that, you know, people have even compared me with. I can't do it. All I can do is do what's honest to me. And I leave the working it out to Dave or the producer. You figure out how to, because Cherie and I both sang the whole song, and he took what he needed from each of us.
Oh, I see. So you sang the whole thing all the way through, and then she sang it all the way through, and then he kind of edited it to get it to how it sounds. Wow.
I love what he did, because when you hear her sing, and then you hear, because in some ways we can sound similar and I can't tell us apart, but in this particular song, I can tell easily when it goes from her to me. And then my favorite part is when we sing together. It's just, I love how that blend comes out. Working with her has been such a great experience, and finding another comrade in these days and age, in this day and age,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and finding somebody that you have certain things that you, because I'm you know, I think that everybody's different, and you're not going to find anybody ever that thinks or feels exactly the same way that you do. But if you can honor each other's differences and respect each other and accept them for who they are, I think it's kind of a cool thing.
Mm-hmm.
Where we don't overlap, it's great. And she and I learned how to do that without ugliness, you know,
Mm-hmm.
without fighting or without being pissed off or without, you know, any of the unpleasant stuff. And that's not to say that sometimes it didn't get heated, but that's okay. That's life. I'm okay
Right.
with that. As long as, you know, um, I can come back and say to her, look, Cherie, sometimes I have to tell you what I think, whether you like it or agree with me. I have to be able to do that. She says, you're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't happen very often.
No.
So it's kind of cool.
Yeah. Are you working on, so aside from the Black Hole Sun cover, you're doing more music with her?
Yeah, I think we got a 4 record deal.
Wow.
It's just that we're not able to do a lot right at this moment. So I'm glad we
Sure.
had Black Hole Sun in the bag. That was great. And, you know, somebody was asking if we were going to use it on our next record. And if we could, it would be awesome. And I wouldn't mind heading in something, you know, a different direction than what we did.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe we could actually move up through genres in our life
Sure. Oh, sure.
and not just do them, but, you know, write within them as well, you know? So
Yeah.
we don't know yet what it's going to be, but now that I've heard that, I wouldn't have ever even thought of doing that, you know? And it
Mm-hmm.
turned out so cool. And I've heard a couple of the other songs that the Blue Alone artists did, and God, some of them just knocked me on my ass. I mean, they're just great,
That's
beautiful. I can't get them out of my head, although there's a lot of songs stuck in my head right now. Now we're talking about Black Hole Sun, and that one's stuck. So
Wow. Well, it's been hard to, collaborate with her since everyone's quarantined.
yeah, and what I did do is, mostly I write lyrics and melody to Dave's tracks. Sometimes I have ideas and chord progressions, and I show him, but I can't play a musical instrument other than drums, so
Mm-hmm.
I have to show him the idea, and he takes it from there. But we've already shared some tracks, kind of near the beginning. But then I think, and I don't really know, I haven't been in touch with her as much as I'd like, but everybody has to figure out their own lives and what they're going to do and what we can do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's turning out a little different. I think it keeps changing for me, this whole quarantine thing.
Right.
And psychologically, it's been weird. I mean, I've been like living within the boundaries of my own home, and yard. I mean, I walk my dog, but that's really about it. I'm kind of trying to get back to a little bit of normal, but I don't even know what normal is.
Right. I know.
I had like a ton of ideas that I wanted to work on, and I've only been able to work a little bit, to write a little bit. I'd like to be doing more, but it hasn't really worked out that way. So,
Yeah. I've heard a lot of people say it's not very, in the beginning it was kind of inspiring because it was a state of panic, but now it's just, people are just,
yeah,
looking around at the same four walls. You can't really keep getting inspiration.
yeah. At first it was like, wow, okay, well, I can't be distracted. So yeah, I'm going to organize all these things that I've been meaning to do. I'm going to get all these tapes out. I'm going to finish these songs that I've been meaning to write, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, what is it called? I was like, I was immobilized.
Yeah.
For a while. And then it got weird for a while. Like, will we ever be able to play as go out on tour? I mean, as musicians, we've already kind of lost a little bit of a way to make a living with, the way records sell now.
Sure.
Still had touring, Well, now there's no touring, or at least there wasn't. My understanding now is that, people love music so much that they're figuring it out.
Uh-huh.
And when there are clubs open and there are bands there, they're packed to the hill. So, so maybe that isn't ending. And, but we got a lot of stuff going on, and there's always something to do. There's, now that the Black Hole Sun was released, we're Cherie and I seem to be a little bit busy doing, some interviews and things like that. And I didn't mention this while we were doing that last Fanny record called Fanny Walked the Earth. Since it was the three of us from Fanny getting back together, a documentary was made about the band.
Wow. Tell me about the documentary.
Yeah, it was great. It was I bought my tickets to the first film festival it was going to show at in April, and bam, shut down.
Yeah.
So now the director and the people that are involved that funded the film, they're figuring out how to do it. And they've been talking about, there's a lot of things that are going on in drive-ins.
Oh yeah. Like drive-in concerts and all that stuff.
Right. But there's something about being able to be next to somebody. And I don't know. And that part of it is out of my control. Like I said, things happen for a reason. Well, so the director, Bobby Joe Hart, is holding out to do a live film festival. We've been invited to a couple of pretty good ones. So I'm not allowed to say which.
Sure.
But so I'm hoping that actually can happen pretty soon. But if I don't know when, we just have to be patient. But I don't know. Maybe I needed this time to get to a place where I can go back to not only being creative, but having different perspectives than I had before. Maybe this is kind of a little bit of a blessing in disguise. There's the horrible parts of it, but I don't know. For me, this is a huge wake-up call.
Oh yeah. And
I'm into that, I guess maybe you have to pay to play, which is terrible. But maybe people have to realize that, we're all part of the same thing, and what we do affects, I believe this, what I do affects you and everybody around me, and vice versa. And we're learning that firsthand from Mother Nature.
Sure.
What we do affects everybody else on this planet, and for a long time. So maybe we'll be better at how we treat each other and think about each other. So, maybe that's I'm sure a lot of people are thinking about that, but there's something in there for me that's super personal that, I can write about, because I don't know if I can write for the masses. I can only tell stories, and if people like them, well, then great.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me today, Brie. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
This has been great. I have one more question. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Oh, yeah, do it. Say yes to everything and think about it later. I think that you really have to be willing to work really hard. But the great thing about being an artist is the work it becomes not work, To me, the idea of success means loving what you do. So if you love whatever kind of art form you're doing, do it. There's nothing better, nothing better. I feel very fortunate that I have been able to do this all my life. And I ain't done yet.